August 7th, 1942. Dawn. Iron Bottom Sound. Guadalcanal. A thin gray light crawls across the restless Pacific as the transport ships tremble under the weight of thousands of anxious U.S. Marines. The air tastes like salt, diesel, and fear. Engines rumble, water slaps against the steel hull, and somewhere beyond the wall of tropical mist, an island waits, silent, watching, armed with death. Inside one of the landing craft, Private First Class Daniel Hawk Harrington, 1st Marine Division, tightens his grip on his M1 Garand. He isn't praying, he's too focused for that. Sweat gathers at the edge of his helmet and drips under the rifle's walnut stock. Around him stand men just like him. Corporal Joe Ramirez, knuckles white on his BAR. Lieutenant Mark Hensley, jaw clenched, quietly rehearsing landing orders. Private Samuel Wright, trying to swallow the knot in his throat. The ramp rattles. The coxswain shouts over the roar of the Higgins boat engine. 30 seconds! Get ready! Hawk feels the vibration of the craft through his boots. He hears the distant boom of naval guns hammering the jungle beyond the shoreline. Columns of black smoke twist into the newborn sky. The Marines had been told this would be a surprise landing, but every man here knows only one truth. There is no such thing as a safe landing in the Pacific. The boat slows. The engine coughs. The hull scrapes the shallows. Then, clang. A Japanese artillery round slams into the water 100 yards away, sending a geyser of ocean skyward and drenching the men in a blast of warm spray. Another follows. Closer. Lieutenant Hensley raises his voice. Eyes forward! Move that second that ramp drops! The ramp slams down, and hell opens.
The Marines surge into waist-high water. Rifles raised over their heads, boots sinking into the soft seabed. Machine gun fire snaps from somewhere deep inside the tree line, bullets slicing the air like hornets. Men dive, stumble, push forward. The surf churns red in seconds. Hawk feels his legs burning as he fights the tide. A round cracks past his ear. He drops to a knee behind a drifting crate, heart pounding hard enough to feel in his fingertips. Hawk, move! Ramirez shouts, hauling him forward. The pair sprint through the shallows, water exploding around them. The sand ahead is littered with packs, rifles, and bodies. Some moving, most not. But the Marines push on, creating a thin, expanding line across the beach. From behind a fallen palm trunk, Lieutenant Hensley shouts new orders. Get off the beach. Use the tree line for cover. Push toward the airfield. Move. The men obey. Not because they're fearless, but because stopping means death. As Hawk reaches the edge of the jungle, he dives behind a cluster of roots. The dense vegetation swallows the noise of the surf and replaces it with something worse, a suffocating silence. He cannot see enemy positions. He cannot hear voices. Only insects buzz, leaves tremble, and unseen shadows seem to breathe. Then, a single rifle cracks from deep within the jungle. A Marine falls beside Hawk, gasping, reaching for his helmet as blood pools beneath him. The reality hits Hawk like a hammer. The Japanese are not retreating. They are hunting. And the 1st Marine Division has just stepped into their den. Lieutenant Hensley crawls forward, slaps a hand onto Hawk's shoulder. Listen, he says, voice low but steady. We push to that airfield or we die on this beach. This island controls the Pacific. We take it, we survive. Stay close.
August 7th, 1942. Guadalcanal jungle perimeter. The roar of mortars fades behind them as Lieutenant Hensley's squad pushes deeper beneath the jungle canopy. The light dims instantly, swallowed by the tangled ceiling of leaves. The world becomes a cathedral of humidity, thick, suffocating, alive with unseen movement. Sweat pours down the Marines' faces, turning dust into mud on their cheeks. Every breath feels like they're inhaling steam. Hawk adjusts his grip on the M1 Garand. Tropical vines cling to his gear like living hands trying to pull him back. Gnats cloud his face. The metallic taste of adrenaline refuses to fade. Ramirez crouches beside a moss-covered log, scanning ahead. Feels wrong. Too quiet. Lieutenant Hensley signals a halt. The squad freezes. Not a word, not a breath louder than the whisper of wind through distant palms. Hawk presses his ear toward the jungle floor, and for the first time he truly hears it. The subtle crunch of movement that is not theirs. A shadow shifts 30 yards ahead. Hawk's ham shoots up in warning. But it's already too late. A burst of machine gun fire rips through the undergrowth, splitting leaves and branches. Marines dive for cover. Hawk throws himself behind a rotting stump as bullets chew into the bark above his helmet. Japanese Nambu fire, short, sharp, disciplined. "Ambush!" Hensley shouts, drawing his .45. The Marines return fire blindly at first. The jungle distorts direction. Sound ricochets between trunks, making it impossible to tell where death is coming from. Ramirez crawls forward, planting his BAR on a mound of roots. "Cover me!" he barks, then squeezes off 3 controlled bursts that rattle through the trees like thunder. A Japanese soldier tumbles from a camouflaged firing slit. His uniform blending so perfectly with the foliage, Hawk wonders how many more remain invisible. The firefight intensifies. Rifles crack. Shotgun blasts echo from the flank. Somewhere behind them, a Marine screams for a corpsman. Hawk moves position to position, firing, ducking, moving again, just like he was trained. But here, every motion feels slower, heavier. The air itself seems to resist them. Lieutenant Hensley crawls beside him. "We push through," he shouts. "They're trying to pin us down before reinforcements arrive. Stay tight!" The squad advances in bounding teams. Fire and move, fire and move. Hawk leaps to a fallen banyan trunk and braces his rifle. Through the crosshairs, he glimpses another Japanese soldier shifting behind a fern. Hawk fires once. The figure collapses. But there is no time to feel anything. The enemy melts back into the jungle. The firing stops as abruptly as it started. Silence. A horrible, unnatural silence. Ramirez lowers his BAR. They're falling back. They want us deeper, where they've set the traps. Hensley wipes sweat from his brow. We don't have a choice. Henderson Field won't hold unless we clear this perimeter. They press forward again, slower this time, rifles raised, fingers always brushing triggers. Every few yards, they find something new. A tripwire hidden behind leaves, a punji pit filled with sharpened bamboo, a corpse of a Marine from an earlier patrol positioned as a grim warning. The Japanese weren't just defending the jungle. They were the jungle. Hours pass. The heat becomes a weight on their backs. Canteens grow lighter. Legs ache. Shirts cling wet to their skin. But they keep moving, one grueling step at a time. By late afternoon, they reach a ridge overlooking the Lunga perimeter. From here, Henderson Field lies exposed, a long scar of dirt and half-built infrastructure.
Marines and Navy Seabees crawl across it like ants, fortifying, digging, building what will become the lifeline of the entire Pacific campaign. Hawk breathes out slowly. All this for that strip of dirt. Ramirez rests a hand on his shoulder. That strip of dirt is the only thing keeping the Japanese from cutting the Pacific in half. As they descend the ridge, the sun dips low, staining the sky orange. Distant crickets chirp. The jungle hums a slow, ominous lullaby. Then, a faint rustling. Hensley raises his fist. The squad freezes. Hawk peers into the brush. For a moment he sees nothing. Then dozens of silhouettes emerge from the undergrowth, silent, crouched, rifles ready. Japanese infantry moving in formation, heading toward the airfield under cover of dusk. Not an ambush, a frontal assault. Hensley whispers, voice tight as a trigger spring. Get ready. When they hit the airfield, we hold, no matter what. Hawk's heart thunders. Night is coming, and with it, the first great test of marine endurance on Guadalcanal.
August 7th, 1942. Dusk. Henderson Field Perimeter, Guadalcanal. The last sliver of sunlight bleeds away behind the jungle ridge, leaving the world washed in deep purples and rising shadows. The humid air thickens, as if even the atmosphere is bracing for impact. Hawk, Ramirez, Lieutenant Hensley, and the battered remains of their squad slip into the defensive line encircling Henderson Field. What passes for fortifications is little more than hastily dug foxholes, sandbags filled with half-wet coral, and machine gun nests scratched into red clay. The Marines have been on the island less than a day, but already word spreads through the line. The Japanese are coming, and they are coming tonight. Hawk drops into a shallow fighting hole beside Ramirez. The dirt is still warm from the day's sun. Mosquitoes buzz around his helmet. His canteen is nearly empty, and his uniform clings like a second layer of wet skin. He forces his hands to stop shaking as he reloads his Garand. Lieutenant Hensley crouches behind them, scanning the tree line. Stay low. Fire only when you see them clearly. His voice is calm, but his eyes betray the truth. He knows what's coming. Searchlights sweep across the darkening jungle. The airfield lies behind them, eerily open, the long strip of land shimmering under the moon. Somewhere behind the tree line, the Japanese regroup, reorganize, and prepare. The first sound comes softly. A snapping twig, a faint rustle, a whisper. Then the jungle erupts. A chorus of screams, sharp, guttural, terrifying, explodes from the shadows. Japanese soldiers charge forward, rifles raised, swords glinting, grenades clutched in tight fists. Their boots pound the earth in perfect, terrifying unison. Here they come, Ramirez shouts, leveling his bar. Hawk braces his rifle. His vision tunnels. His heartbeat becomes a drum in his skull. The world narrows to the sights of his gun and the moving shapes rushing toward him. A flare arcs into the sky, bathing everything in a ghostly green glow. The first wave hits. Machine guns roar to life. 30 caliber tracers slice through the air like streaks of fire. Japanese soldiers fall, but more surge forward, relentless, unstoppable, driven by a fanatic determination Hawk has never witnessed before. Hawk fires, and fires again, and again. Every shot thumps against his shoulder, the recoil driving him deeper into the mud. Empty en-bloc clips ping into the darkness. Sweat stings his eyes, his throat burns.
Ramirez's bar barks beside him, sending long bursts that tear through the charging infantry. Brass casings rain down into the hole, hissing when they touch Hawk's arm. Lieutenant Hensley shouts orders through the chaos. "Shift fire left! Left flank is folding! Keep pressure on them!" But the Japanese don't stop. They leap over their fallen. They fan out.
They crawl through grass so tall the Marines can barely see them. Hawk spots a movement to the right, a Japanese soldier breaking through the line, bayonet raised. Hawk pivots, fires a single round, and the attacker collapses mid-stride. Before he can breathe, a mortar round crashes into the far side of the perimeter. Dirt erupts, screams echo. A machine gun falls silent. The line is thinning. Hawk's pulse spikes. "Ramirez, they're breaking center." "I see them, keep firing." The second wave hits harder than the first. Grenades explode inches from the Marines' positions, showering them with soil and shrapnel. One blast knocks Ramirez off balance, and Hawk drags him down before another round whistles overhead. The Japanese close the distance. Now they're less than 40 yards away. Some sprinting, some crawling on their bellies, others charging with bayonets gleaming under the moon. Hand-to-hand distance. The last flare fizzles out, plunging the world into near-total darkness, lit only by muzzle flashes and arcs of tracer fire. Shadows dance violently across Hawk's vision. A Japanese squad rushes directly at their foxhole. "Prepare for close combat," Lieutenant Hensley yells. Hawk's breath catches. Ramirez pulls his K-bar knife free. Hensley primes a grenade. The Japanese spit out the enemy, shouting, swinging rifles, slashing with bayonets. Hensley lobs the grenade. It detonates mid-charge. Bodies fall, some still moving, some horribly still. But 3 soldiers break through the blast and leap toward the foxhole. Hawk pulls the trigger. Click. Empty. He fumbles for a new clip. His hands slip on sweat and mud. One of the Japanese soldiers lunges toward him, bayonet aimed for his throat. Ramirez tackles the attacker midair. The two tumble into the dirt, wrestling in a desperate, brutal struggle. Hawk slams a fresh clip into his Garand just as another enemy soldier rushes him. He raises his rifle. A shot rings out from behind. The Japanese soldier collapses. Lieutenant Hensley stands over Hawk, smoke curling from his .45. But there is no time to breathe. The line is buckling. Marines are shouting for ammo, for corpsmen, for support that isn't coming. Hawk grips his rifle tighter. They must hold. They have no choice. The airfield, America's foothold in the Pacific, hangs on a thread. And the night is far from over.
August 7th to 8th, 1942. Henderson Field Defensive Line, Guadalcanal. The night warps into a living nightmare. Noise, chaos, and flashes of light tearing through complete darkness. The jungle feels carnivorous, swallowing bodies, bullets, and screams with ruthless hunger. Hawk, Ramirez, Lieutenant Hensley, and the remaining Marines cling to their foxhole as the Japanese assault intensifies, wave after relentless wave. The air tastes like cordite and dirt. Every breath burns. Ramirez wipes blood from his face, not his own, then reloads the bar with trembling hands. "They won't stop," he mutters, voice raw. "They're not going to stop until we're all dead." Hensley crouches low, scanning the tree line through the smoke. "We don't give them a reason to think we're done." A sudden whistle, a sharp, metallic scream cuts through the battlefield. Incoming mortar. "Down!" Hawk shouts. The explosion rips through the nearest machine gun nest. A spray of earth, metal, and human pieces erupts into the air. The gunner's position falls silent. The right flank buckles. Hawk's ears ring. His vision blurs. He shakes his head to clear it and forces himself to look, must see, must fight, must continue. Japanese soldiers surge through the gap created by the blast, running low, bayonets flashing under the moon. Hensley slaps Hawk's shoulder. "Shift fire, right side, right now!" Hawk pivots and fires. His Garand bucks hard against his shoulder. A Japanese soldier collapses mid-charge. Another stumbles but keeps moving, crawling forward, dragging his rifle through the mud. Then, click, empty again. Hawk slams in a new clip, hands moving faster than thought, acting on instinct born of terror and training. Ramirez fires long bursts, sweeping the incoming wave before they reach the foxholes. His bar glows hot. Smoke rises from its barrel. Spent brass piles at his knees. But the Japanese are too many, and the Marines are too few. Another wave breaks through on the left. A Marine screams as he's dragged from his position by enemy soldiers. Another Marine leaps to help him, only to fall as a bayonet pierces his chest. The line is fracturing. "Fall back to secondary positions," an officer yells from somewhere down the trench. "If they take the airfield, we lose everything." But there are no real secondary positions. Everything behind them is half-dug earth, construction equipment, and the airfield itself. No cover, no trenches, no safety. If the Japanese get through, the Marines die in the open. Hensley shakes his head. "We hold here. Not falling back. Not us." Hawk and Ramirez lock eyes with him. They understand. If they run, they'll be cut down. If they stay, maybe, just maybe, they live.
Hawk's eyes widen. Hensley dives, kicks it out just as it explodes mid-air above them. The shockwave hurls all three Marines against the dirt. Hawk's ears ring again. Ramirez coughs, gasping for breath. Before they recover, a Japanese soldier vaults over the edge of their foxhole, bayonet raised. Hawk reacts first. He grabs the rifle barrel with both hands, forcing it upward. The blade slashes across his helmet, carving a deep groove. The soldier snarls and lunges forward, trying to overpower him. Ramirez slams his shoulder into the attacker's ribs, knocking him off balance. Hensley's .45 flashes once, twice. The attacker collapses into the mud at their feet. But there's no time to breathe. More soldiers are coming. More shapes, more shadows, more silhouettes emerging from the grass. The Japanese advance like a rising tide, silent, terrifying, unstoppable. Hawk wipes dirt from his eyes and fires again. His shoulder throbs from the recoil. His hands burn from the heat of the rifle. His throat aches. He looks down the line and sees Marines fighting hand to hand, bayonets clashing, rifles used as clubs, knives flashing. Corpsmen drag wounded men back, only to be shot as they move. The line is breaking apart. Ramirez shouts, "Hawk, ammo's almost gone." Hensley checks his magazines. Only one left. Hawk grabs his last clip, feels its weight, feels the fragility of the moment. They cannot hold much longer. And then, from the darkness behind Henderson Field, a low rumble. Engines. Diesel. American. Reinforcements. The 1st Marines Reserve Platoon charges forward, weapons blazing, shouting, pushing, reinforcing the shattered line. Fresh BARs, fresh rifles, fresh determination. The Japanese assault stalls, momentarily overwhelmed by the sudden surge of gunfire. For the first time all night, Hawk feels the tide shift. But only for a moment.
Because now the jungle roars again, not with charging infantry, but with the guttural, thunderous growl of Japanese Type 94 tanks rolling toward the front line. The Marines stare in terror as the silhouettes emerged through the trees, unstoppable steel monsters moving straight toward the airfield. Hensley whispers, "Oh God, they brought armor." The battle for Henderson Field is far from over. It has only begun.
August 8th, 1942. Near midnight. Western edge of Henderson Field, Guadalcanal. The jungle trembles. Not from footsteps, not from charging infantry, but from something heavier. Something that makes the ground itself vibrate beneath Hawk's boots. He grips the edge of the foxhole, eyes wide, heart beating so hard it hurts. Ramirez whispers, voice barely audible, "Tell me that's not what I think it is." But it is. Japanese Type 94 tank cats, squat metal beasts with riveted armor and chugging diesel engines, emerge from the jungle shadows like predators. Small, cramped, and underpowered by modern standards. But here, under the moon, in the middle of the torn, fragile Marine line, they look invincible. Lieutenant Hensley curses under his breath. Those things'll chew right through us. The tanks rattle forward, treads grinding coral and mud, machine guns already spitting bright arcs of fire toward the Marine positions. The bullets rake across foxholes, kicking up fountains of dirt and sparks. A nearby squad tries to reposition. A burst of tank fire cuts them down. The line recoils. Hawk ducks low as rounds slice overhead, chewing into the sandbags. His pulse thrashes in his ears. He's fought men, but steel monsters? He's unprepared, untrained for this. Ramirez slams a new magazine into the BAR. What are we supposed to do, throw rocks at it? Not rocks. Hensley reaches into his pack and produces two long olive drab cylinders. MK2 anti-tank rifle grenades. He looks at Hawk. You ever thrown one of these? No, sir. Then tonight's your night. A massive explosion erupts down the line. Another tank cat mowing through a machine gun nest. Marines scatter, some firing rifles uselessly at the armor, bullets pinging off harmlessly. The Japanese infantry moves behind the tanks, advancing through the gaps they carve, like wolves following a battering ram. Hensley pulls Hawk close. Listen, these tanks are light. Hit the treads or the engine block. Either'll disable it. You miss those, it's over. Hawk nods, though every part of him screams in fear. Ramirez grips Hawk's shoulder. I'll cover you. Just don't die, huh? No time for fear. No time for anything. Hawk climbs out of the foxhole as the tanks close within 50 yards. The ground shakes. Hot air whips against his face from their firing. He pulls the pin. Hears it ting against the metal. Feels the weight of the grenade in his hand. He sprints. Bullets chase him, whipping past his ears, snapping branches, kicking mud into his eyes. The tank cat's machine gun swivels toward him. A burst of fire stitches the ground at his feet. Hawk dives behind a broken tree trunk, panting, clutching the grenade. The tank grinds closer, its engine screaming like an angry animal. He stands, throws. The grenade arcs beautifully under the moon, twirling end over end before slamming into the left tread. A violent explosion tears through the metal, flames erupt. The tank it jerks sideways, crippled, grinding into the earth. Hawk barely avoids a rain of burning shrapnel. Ramirez cheers from the foxhole. Yes, one down!
But the victory dies instantly as another tankette locks onto Hawk's position, its gun panning, tracking him. Hawk dives just as a stream of bullets rips through his cover. Splinters and bark shower him. His helmet rings like a struck bell. He crawls through the mud, gasping, searching desperately for another grenade. Nothing. But then, a blur of motion beside him. Lieutenant Hensley. He holds the second grenade. "Get back!" Hensley shouts. He stands fully upright, silhouetted against the moon, exposed, and hurls the grenade with every ounce of strength he has. It sails low, bouncing once, twice, before skidding beneath the tank's chassis. The explosion is deafening. The tankette lifts off the ground, slams back down, then erupts in flame. The crew bails out, burning, screaming into the night. Hawk stares, stunned. Hensley drops to a knee, breathing hard, face soaked in sweat. But there's no time to celebrate, because the third tankette, the largest, pushes through the smoke behind them. Ramirez yells, "We've got nothing left!" Hawk's heart sinks. The last tank rolls forward, its treads clattering, its machine gun ready to shred them all. Then, a new sound cuts the night. Deep, heavy, violent. Boom! An American 37mm anti-tank gun blasts from behind the airfield. The shell streaks across the clearing, glowing orange. It slams into the tankette. A fireball blossoms. The steel monster collapses in a heap of smoke and mangled metal. The Marines on the line erupt in shouts, relief, adrenaline, raw animal survival boiling over. But the victory is temporary. Behind the burning wrecks, the jungle shifts. Silhouettes gather. Dozens, maybe hundreds. The Japanese aren't done. They're preparing their largest assault yet. Ramirez spits into the dirt. "You've got to be kidding me." Hensley reloads his pistol with shaking hands. "Dig in. They're going to try to break us before dawn." Hawk feels the weight of exhaustion, terror, and determination press onto his shoulders. They survived the tanks. Now they must survive everything else.
August 8th, 1942, 2:12 a.m. Henderson Field, Guadalcanal. The battlefield settles into a tense, terrible stillness. Smoke from the burning tankettes drifts low across the clearing, glowing orange under scattered embers. The smell, hot metal, cordite, blood, burnt grass, hangs thick in the air. Somewhere in the darkness, a wounded Marine moans for a corpsman, but no one can move yet. No one dares. Because every man on the line knows this stillness means they're coming again. Hawk crouches at the edge of the foxhole, chest heaving. His hands tremble uncontrollably. His helmet feels too heavy. His ears ring from the last explosion. Sweat drips from his chin, mixing with the mud he's coated in. Ramirez slumps beside him, BAR across his lap, chest rising and falling like a man who's run miles with a boulder on his back. "How many more can they have?" he whispers. Hensley, kneeling behind them, answers quietly, "Enough to break us if we lose our nerve." A flare arcs into the sky from the far eastern position. It bursts, casting a pale, eerie glow over the jungle. And Hawk sees them. Shapes, rows, lines. Dozens of silhouettes forming in the tree line. Then hundreds. The Japanese infantry stands in rigid formation, bayonets fixed, rifles ready, officers walking the line with drawn swords. Their helmets glint like beetle shells under the pale light. Their posture is disciplined, their silence even more terrifying. Ramirez's voice cracks. "A whole battalion. maybe more. Hensley steadies his breathing. They mean to break us before daylight. If they take the field, they take the island. If they take the island, he doesn't finish. He doesn't have to. Hawk feels the weight of it. The entire Pacific, the whole war, balanced on this thin strip of dirt. A distant Japanese bugle sounds, high, sharp, echoing across the clearing. Ramirez closes his eyes. Oh no, here it comes. The jungle erupts. A wave of Japanese infantry charges forward, screaming in unison, a rolling wall of sound so fierce it vibrates in Hawk's chest. Officers point their swords, soldiers rush with grenades, bayonets, even sharpened bamboo spears. They leap over bodies, duck under branches, sprinting with superhuman ferocity. Hawk clutches his Garand tight. Wait, Hensley warns. Wait! The scream grows louder. The line shakes. Wait! Fire!
The Marines unleash a wall of flame and steel. Machine guns chatter from dug-in nests. Bars roar. Rifles bark in disciplined volleys. Tracers streak across the clearing like fiery threads. The first wave collapses instantly. Dozens fall, tripping those behind them. But the Japanese keep coming, climbing over the dead, filling the gaps, pushing forward with terrifying resolve. Hawk fires until his rifle heats his palms, clips ping into the dirt at his feet. He reloads mechanically, eyes locked on silhouettes rushing closer and closer. A Japanese soldier throws a grenade. Hawk ducks. It detonates behind them, rocking the hole. Dirt rains down. Ramirez coughs violently. Another wave hits, then another. The Japanese attack in coordinated lines, one firing, one advancing, one preparing grenades. The Marines' line wavers, foxholes buckle, machine guns jam from overheating. At the far left, the defense collapses. Hawk sees Marines retreating, dragging wounded men as enemies swarm over their positions. Hensley notices too. He grabs Hawk by the collar. We move to reinforce, now! They scramble out of the foxhole, bullets slicing around them. Thunderous booms roar from the airfield as Seabees fire captured Japanese howitzers point blank into the advancing infantry. The ground shakes with every blast. Hawk sprint crawls behind a sandbag ridge, firing as fast as he can load. Ramirez sets up beside him, bar thundering. Hensley directs Marines into a tighter circle, forming a shrinking defensive knot around the airfield. But the Japanese keep coming. A human wave crashes against the line like a living tide, bodies piling, explosions ripping, rifles cracking, screams merging into one horrible, endless roar. A bayonet duel erupts 10 yards to Hawk's left. A Marine goes down, another takes his place. A Japanese soldier leaps the sandbags only to be clubbed by a rifle butt. The line shrinks again. A mortar shell falls close. The explosion sends Hawk flying. He slams into the ground, vision white, ears ringing. Ramirez drags him behind cover. Stay with me, man. Stay with me. Hawk's head spins. He tries to stand, stumbles, grabs Ramirez's shoulder to steady himself. And through the smoke, he sees another wave forming in the tree line. Officers raise their swords. Bugles cry. Shadows shift. Hundreds more infantry prepare to charge. Ramirez's voice breaks. They're going to overrun us. Hensley pulls a fresh magazine for his .45, his last one. He says, "We hold the airfield, even if it kills us." Hawk breathes hard, rifle shaking in his hands. He knows the next wave might be the last they can withstand, and dawn is still hours away.
August 1st, 1944. Tinian, Mariana Islands. The sun hadn't risen yet, but the island glowed with a strange, ghostly light. Phosphorescence drifting across the cratered fields and smoke hanging low like a curtain.
Captain Mason wiped the soot from his eyes as he knelt beside a shattered seawall. His BAR man, Corporal Sanders, checking the weapon's barrel for mud. "Mason," whispered Lieutenant Rhodes, sliding beside him, uniform torn, boots caked in volcanic ash. "Forward scouts spotted movement. North Ridge. Bunkers. Heavy ones." Mason nodded. He could already feel the tension in the air, the invisible pressure that came when the enemy was too quiet, too still. Behind them, the men of Fox Company hugged the ground, their helmets barely visible in the pre-dawn dimness. Somewhere out in the fields, a lone Japanese knee mortar thumped, once, twice, like a distant heartbeat. He signaled forward. The line rose as one. The Marines began to advance, not charging, but gliding, rifles up, each step controlled, practiced. They had learned by now that rushing got men killed. The Japanese were masters at silence, camouflage, misdirection. You didn't attack shadows. You forced shadows to reveal themselves. A low ridge loomed ahead, its slopes carved with brush and concrete teeth. Sanders whispered, "Sarge, do you hear that?" A faint metallic echo drifted from the ridge, a hatch being unlatched. Then, a flash. Down! The first blast from the bunker's heavy machine gun split the morning air, punching long, flaming arcs across the field. Marines dove into shell depressions, dirt geysered. Sanders slammed beside Mason, clutching the BAR. The ridge erupted, multiple firing points coming alive like a waking beast. Rhodes crawled up behind them. "We need armor. Radio it in." "No time. They'll cut us apart before a Sherman even clears the tree line." A decision had to be made, and fast. Mason scanned the battlefield. Smoke drifting west. A ravine splitting toward the ridge. The mangled remains of a Japanese ammunition cart half buried in the soil. A plan formed instantly. "Sanders," he said, "you're with me. We're moving up that ravine. If we can get close, we can flank the first bunker and smoke it." Rhodes hesitated. "You won't have support." "We'll make our own support." The ravine was narrow, wet, and crawling with insects, but it was cover. The enemy fire hissed above them, tracing sparks across the rock. He could feel the vibrations of each machine gun burst in his teeth. At the ravine's end, they halted. The bunker crouched just 10 yards away, its long barrel sweeping fire across the Marines pinned below. Mason pulled a smoke grenade, kissed the cap for luck, and hurled it underhand. It bounced once, then bloomed into white fog. "Go!" Sanders surged forward, BAR braced. Mason followed, Thompson raised. They burst through the smoke like phantoms. The Japanese machine gun crew turned, too slow. Sanders cut down the first two with a short, brutal burst. Mason leapt onto the bunker's firing slit, tossing a fragmentation grenade into the chamber with a metallic clink. "Back!" The explosion rocked the fortification, sending dust vomiting from its cracks. Below, Fox Company heard the blast and roared back to life. Marines rose from the earth, charging forward now that the ridge's anchor position had fallen silent. But Tinian was not done fighting. As Mason and Sanders caught their breath, a deep tremor rolled through the ground, followed by a hollow mechanical whine. Rhodes's voice crackled faintly over the radio. "Mason, incoming armor. Enemy tankettes, multiple." The Japanese were committing their last machines to break the American advance. Mason's jaw tightened. "Then we hold here. We hold this ridge." Sanders loaded a fresh magazine into the BAR. "Just another morning in the Pacific, right, Captain?" Mason stepped up beside him.
watching the horizon where the silhouettes of small, fast tankettes began to emerge from the brush. "No," he said quietly, gripping his Thompson. "This one's worse." The island growled as the engines approached. The final battle for Tinian was about to begin. Up close, violent, and without mercy. August 1st, 1944, North Ridge, Tinian. The smoke from the destroyed bunker drifted across the ridge like a shredded veil as Captain Mason steadied his breathing. The ground trembled again, this time heavier, closer. Sanders braced the BAR against his shoulder, eyes locked on the tree line. Branches snapped, metal groaned. Then the first Type 94 tankette burst into view, small, fast, and armed with a hull-mounted 37mm cannon that glinted in the dim morning light. Mason muttered, "They're committing everything they have left." The tankette's turret jerked, its cannon fired. A shell slammed into a crater just yards from Fox Company's line, blasting dirt into a towering plume. Marines ducked instinctively, covering their helmets as shrapnel hissed overhead. Lieutenant Rhodes sprinted toward Mason, sliding into cover. 3 confirmed tankettes, maybe 4. They're circling left, using the dead ground. "AT teams ready?" asked Mason. "Already in position, but they won't have a clean angle unless we draw them out." Mason nodded once. "Then we make them look at us." He signaled Sanders, and the two scrambled across the ridge, dropping behind chunks of broken concrete. The lead tankette spat machine gun fire, stitching long lines through the brush. Mason could hear the rounds pinging off the bunker ruins behind him. The second tankette thundered through a gap in the trees, turning sharply, searching for targets. Sanders whispered, "Sarge, if we pop smoke, they'll fire blind." "That's the point." He pulled a smoke grenade from his pouch, yanked the pin with his teeth, and hurled it out into the open. A thick cloud blossomed instantly, rolling across the ridge. For a moment, everything vanished into milky white. Then, movement. The first tankette broke through the smoke, turret turning wildly as it tried to reacquire targets. Its engine roared, its tracks chewed into the dirt. "Now! Fire!" Mason shouted. From the left flank, a Marine AT team rose from the grass. Corporal Henson lifted a bazooka, steadied it on his shoulder, and unleashed a blazing round. The rocket screamed across the battlefield and smashed into the tankette's hull. A deafening whump. The machine lurched violently, flames spewing from its vision slits. It rolled backwards, tracks grinding in the dirt before the entire frame collapsed, burning hot and bright. But the second tankette didn't hesitate. It accelerated, straight toward the ridge. Mason shouted, "Move!" The machine burst through the smoke and came within yards of Mason's position. Sanders opened fire with the BAR, rounds bouncing off the steel plates like sparks off an anvil. "No good," Sanders yelled. "It's too thick." The tankette jerked its turret toward them, cannon lowering. They had seconds.
Mason dove behind a fallen tree, grabbed a satchel charge left behind by a previous Japanese position, and glanced at Sanders. "Cover me." Without waiting for argument, Mason sprinted. Bullets tore up the earth around his boots. The tankette's tracks screamed as it pivoted. Sanders laid down suppressing fire, forcing the small hatch to slam shut. Mason closed the distance. 5 steps. 3 steps. 1. He slid under the tankette's nose as the cannon fired, its blast scorching the air overhead. Mason jammed the satchel charge beneath the left track, pulled the fuse, and rolled away as fast as he could. He hit the dirt hard. The explosive erupted in a thunderous blast. The tankette bucked upward, one track blown clean off. It slammed back down with a shriek of metal, smoke pouring from its hull.
A third tankette appeared on the ridge, this one slower, more cautious. But now Fox Company had the advantage. Another bazooka team took aim. A trail of fire streaked across the field. The third tankette erupted in a fireball. For a moment, all sound ceased except the crackling of burning metal. Sanders jogged up, breathing hard. "Captain, they're falling back." Mason adjusted his helmet, staring across the ridge as the last Japanese machine retreated into the trees. He could feel the island shifting, Japanese resistance fracturing, desperation setting in. "Tinian is breaking," Rhodes said. Mason watched the smoke curling toward the horizon. "Then we press. This ridge is ours now, and we're not giving it back." The Marines began regrouping, tending to wounded, reloading weapons, steadying themselves for the next push. The final Japanese defensive line lay just beyond the northern cliffs, and they were heading straight for it.
August 2nd, 1944. Northern Cliffs, Tinian. The island narrowed into a jagged spearhead here, steep limestone cliffs plunging into the brutal surf below, the wind howling across them like a wounded animal. Captain Mason crouched behind a coral outcropping, scanning the terrain ahead. This was the last defensive wall. The Japanese knew they were cornered, which made them more dangerous than ever. Below the Marines, the surf hammered the rocks, white foam exploding skyward every few seconds. Above them, the cliffs were carved with natural shelves and man-made hiding points, perfect positions for snipers, grenadiers, and machine gun nests. Sanders whispered, "Feels like we're walking into a graveyard." "We are," Mason said. "Theirs or ours." Fox Company advanced in a slow crawl, rifles raised, flamethrower teams spread out and ready. Every rock seemed alive, every shadow a threat. The closer they moved, the more they felt it, the uncanny stillness. Then, a single rifle shot cracked across the cliffs. A Marine just ahead dropped instantly, helmet bouncing twice before rolling over the edge. Sanders slammed flat to the ground. "Sniper! Top left ridge!" Mason saw it, a thin glint of light reflecting off a scope. He shouldered the Thompson, but the angle was impossible. "Henson!" he shouted. "Smoke that ridge!" The corporal lobbed a smoke grenade with practiced ease. It rolled along the sharp rock, then erupted into a dense white cloud. The sniper fired blindly, shots slicing through the haze. The Marines surged forward, using the fresh cover. As they advanced, the cliffs erupted with new life, grenades rolling from ledges, small arms fire crackling from hidden pits, suicide charges bursting from narrow caves. The Japanese had transformed the cliffs into a vertical fortress. A grenade clattered near Mason's feet. He kicked it over the edge. It detonated midair, a flash of light swallowed by the surf below. From a cave ahead, a Japanese machine gun erupted to life, bullets hammering the ground in rapid bursts. Two Marines were pinned behind a broken boulder, unable to move. Mason signaled the flamethrower team, "Get up there, burn that nest." Private Alvarez stepped forward, the M2 flamethrower hissing softly on his back. He pressed against the cliffside, inching upward, bullets pinging dangerously close to his fuel tank. Sanders covered him with short, controlled bursts from the bar, each shot chewing into the cavern's outer lip. Alvarez reached the mouth of the cave. He squeezed the trigger. A roaring tongue of fire surged inside, lighting the darkness in a violent orange glow. Screams echoed out, followed by the collapse of the gunner's position as stone cracked under the heat. The firing fell silent. But the cliffs were far from done. A shrill cry broke out from above. Japanese soldiers charging down in a Banzai attack, their bayonets glinting, their bodies silhouetted against the sky. They came in a wave, leaping from ledges, crashing down with ferocity. "Contact! Front!" Mason grabbed Sanders by the collar and pulled him back as the first attacker swung wildly with a blade. He fired point blank, the Thompson stuttering in his hands. The Marines formed a tight line,
firing upward, using the cliff itself as a shield. The Banzai wave collided with them in a violent blur of steel and grit. Rhodes tackled an attacker off a ledge. Sanders smashed another with the bar's stock. Mason parried a bayonet thrust with his forearm, gritted his teeth, and fired a burst into the man's chest. Seconds stretched into eternity. Until finally, silence. The last attacker tumbled backward into the surf, swallowed by the roaring waves. Breathing hard, Mason looked toward the northernmost edge of the island, where a final plateau rose. That high ground was the heart of the remaining Japanese command post. Rhodes approached, wiping blood from his cheek. "Sir, scouts report hundreds of civilians stuck up there, Japanese soldiers using them as shields." Mason's stomach tightened. This would not be a clean fight. This would be the cruelest part of the Pacific, the part men never forgot. Sanders looked at him, waiting. Mason lifted his rifle. "Then we end this," he said. "Carefully, no mistakes." The Marines advanced toward the plateau, where the final, most desperate chapter of Tinian awaited them.
August 2nd, 1944. Northern Plateau, Tinian. The wind intensified as Fox Company climbed the winding path toward the plateau, carrying with it the distant cries of civilians and the muffled clatter of hurried Japanese defenses. Captain Mason paused near a jagged limestone pillar, raising a fist to halt the line. Ahead, the plateau spread out like a scar, flat, open in places, but ringed with caves and trenches carved into the rock. Smoke curled from burning brush piles. Bits of cloth and luggage lay scattered along the path, left behind by civilians forced upward at bayonet point. Sanders crouched beside Mason, scanning through binoculars. Movement, Captain. Women, children, forced toward the cliff's edge. Mason lowered his head. He'd heard reports of what had happened on Saipan. Entire families driven to the cliffs, forced to jump, others choosing death rather than surrender. The weight of it pressed into his chest. "We're stopping that from happening here," Mason whispered. He signaled the platoon forward, slowly, silently. As the Marines inched closer, they began to hear voices, frantic, desperate. The Japanese officers shouted commands, their tones sharp and frantic, while civilians whimpered or cried out in confusion. It was chaos wrapped in fear. A young Marine near the rear murmured, "Sir, they sound terrified." Mason didn't answer. There were no words for what this moment demanded. A sudden rifle crack split the air. Not at the Marines, at the civilians. Sanders snapped up his BAR. They're firing on their own. Mason didn't hesitate. Smoke the front. Push fast. No casualties among the civilians. Move. Rhodes led the front squad, hurling smoke grenades that billowed into thick gray spirals across the plateau. The Marines surged into the cover, boots pounding over coral and broken earth. A Japanese officer appeared through the haze, sword raised as he screamed orders to the terrified crowd behind him. He spun toward the Marines, and Sanders dropped him with a single burst. Shapes emerged from the caves, soldiers wielding rifles, pistols, even spears. They were desperate, gaunt, driven by the certainty that defeat meant dishonor. They opened fire wildly. Marines hit the ground and practiced movements, firing measured shots, advancing with precision. Mason rushed forward, sliding behind a fallen tree trunk as bullets snapped overhead. He raised his Thompson and fired into a trench to keep enemy heads down. "Alvarez, flamethrower, right cave!" Alvarez sprinted forward, flames roaring from his nozzle, the jet of fire lighting the smoke-filled air. The cave erupted in screams and the dull collapse of burning timber and stone. But the real danger lay at the cliff's edge. Through the haze, Mason spotted a cluster of civilians pressed against the drop, some carrying children, others clutching each other in terror.
2 Japanese soldiers stood behind them, rifles lifted. Mason didn't think. He charged. "Sanders, cover!" Sanders laid down, suppressing fire, bullets tearing through the dirt near the cliff. Mason sprinted into the open, Thompson raised. The first Japanese soldier saw him and swung his rifle. Too slow. Mason fired an entire burst, dropping him instantly. The second soldier turned, raising a pistol toward a young mother and her child. Mason dove, slamming into him with full force. They crashed to the ground, the pistol fired wildly into the sky. Mason grappled with him, grabbing his wrist and driving his knee into the man's ribs. The Japanese soldier hissed something in his language, eyes blazing, before Mason wrenched the pistol free and struck him across the temple. The man fell still. Behind him, the civilians trembled, unsure whether to flee or collapse. One elderly man whispered something in Japanese, something Mason didn't understand, but the gratitude in his eyes was unmistakable. Mason turned back toward the plateau. Fox Company was sweeping the final defenses, clearing caves, shouting for civilians to stay low. Rhodes waved Mason over. "Sir, western cave secured. Last pockets are scattering. It's breaking." Mason stood there, chest heaving, looking out over the chaos. The smoke clearing, the last shots fading, the civilians huddled in clusters, the Japanese command shattered. Tinian was falling. But the cost, God, the cost, hung heavy in the air. Sanders approached, placing a hand on Mason's shoulder. "It's done, Captain." Mason stared down at the waves smashing against the cliffs far below. "No," he said softly. "Not yet," because he knew what came next. They had secured the plateau, but the cave still whispered with movement. There were still soldiers refusing surrender. The hardest part remained.
August 2nd, 1944. Beneath the northern plateau, Tinian. The entrance to the cave system yawned before them, black, silent, and breathing cold air that smelled of damp stone and cordite. Captain Mason stood at the mouth with Sanders, Rhodes, Alvarez, and a small assault team. Behind them, the plateau was secured, but the echoes drifting from within the rock made one thing clear: this battle wasn't finished. Sanders adjusted his helmet, muttering, "Feels like we're stepping into the throat of the island." Mason nodded grimly. "Then we don't let it close on us." The cave sloped downward sharply, the limestone walls narrowing into jagged ribs. The Marines switched to flashlights mounted on their rifles, beams cutting thin blades of light through the darkness. Every drip of water, every shifting pebble, sounded like an approaching enemy. Rhodes whispered behind Mason. "Scouts see these tunnels run deep, multiple chambers, dead ends, choke points, perfect killing zones. Which means we move slow." Mason replied. They advanced, each footstep measured, breaths shallow. A distant metallic clatter echoed through the cave, like someone kicking a tin can. Alvarez tensed. "Movement!" Mason raised his fist, halting the line. For a moment, the cave seemed to hold its breath. Then, a flash of white fabric fluttered from a side passage. A civilian woman, dirt streaked across her face, hands trembling, stumbled into view. She froze as the Marines swung their rifles toward her, then collapsed to her knees, weeping. Mason holstered his weapon and knelt. "You're safe. Go, follow the light. Marines will take you to the plateau." The woman nodded shakily before rushing toward the entrance. But her emergence meant something else. There were more civilians inside, and the soldiers guarding them weren't giving up. The team pressed deeper. 30 yards in, the tunnel split, left passage choked with rubble, right passage curving deeper into darkness. A faint glow flickered from the right, like a candle burning low. Mason signaled right. As they approached the bend, voices carried through the stone. Japanese officers shouting in frantic tones. The words were incomprehensible, but the desperation was unmistakable. Sanders whispered, "They're preparing something." Mason tightened his grip on the Thompson. Flashbang. Rhodes pulled a flash grenade, nodded, and lobbed it around the bend. Crack! The cave erupted in a blinding burst of light and sound, the shockwave slamming back through the tunnel like a fist. Move! The Marines surged around the corner. Inside the chamber, chaos unfolded. Japanese soldiers stumbled, clutching their eyes or ears, rifles dangling. The few were already recovering, attempting to raise weapons. Mason fired first, short bursts. Sanders swept the far side with the bar. Alvarez pivoted to shield two cowering civilians against the wall. A Japanese officer lunged from behind a rock, sword raised, screaming. Mason met him mid-charge. The clash reverberated through the chamber, blade scraping against the Thompson's barrel. Mason twisted, slammed the buttstock into the officer's jaw, and dropped him with a follow-up strike. Gunfire roared in the enclosed space, each shot deafening. Within seconds, the chamber fell still. But as the dust settled, Rhodes pointed toward another tunnel leading deeper, its entrance framed by torn banners and hastily stacked crates. Supply tunnel. Could be the command group. Mason didn't hesitate. We finish this. They moved again, down narrower, twisting passages that smelled of sweat, blood, and oil. The temperature dropped. Their breath fogged faintly in the cold air. Then,
A muffled explosion rumbled ahead. Sanders froze. They're collapsing the tunnels. Mason's blood ran cold. If the Japanese destroyed the internal supports, the entire system could cave in, burying civilians, Marines, and themselves. Double time, Mason barked. They sprinted. The tunnel opened into a massive cavern lit by a single flickering lantern. Inside, a half-dozen Japanese soldiers frantically rigged explosives to support beams, their officer overseeing the process with steely resolve. He turned as Mason's team entered, eyes hollow, accepting death. He shouted one word, a command. A soldier reached for the detonator. Mason fired. The detonator clattered to the ground as its carrier dropped. Bullets erupted across the cavern. Sanders laid suppressing fire. Alvarez blasted flame across the left flank. Rhodes fired with precision into the explosives team. Within minutes, the chamber fell silent. Dust drifted from the ceiling. The supports trembled, but held. Mason approached the fallen officer. The man was still breathing, barely. He looked up, lips moving. Mason didn't understand the words, but he recognized the expression. Relief. Not at survival, but at not taking everyone with him. Mason stood. Rhodes, secure the detonators. Sanders, start checking side chambers. There have to be more civilians. As his men moved, Mason exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. The caves had resisted, but they had not broken the Marines. They were almost done. Almost. But one final tunnel remained. Narrow, sloping, filled with wind that smelled like salt and death. The last holdout, the final defenders of Tinian. And Mason knew he would have to face them.